The heavy oak doors of the gallery were closed. Cool silver light streamed from high-arched windows. It fell across the polished marble floor. I, Eleanor Vance, stood near the entrance. My hand rested on a marble pedestal. It held one of my own sculptures. Across the room was my father, Robert Vance. He was nestled among guests in black tie. He wore the same smug, tailored confidence. It had been my torment since childhood. He was not truly there to celebrate my first solo exhibition. He was there to measure me. He sought the corporate lawyer daughter he always wanted, the one with the predictable, high society life. Instead, he saw me, the artist. My hands were faintly stained with clay. To him, I was an insult to Vance's success. I saw his jaw tighten. A collector was praising my bronze figure, defiance. His eyes fixed on the bold, imperfect lines of my work. To him, they showed no vision or sacrifice. They were an open affront. He just wanted me to be practical, to be normal. A faint smile curled on his lips. He thought he had already won. He believed this phase would be remembered. It would be the day I publicly humiliated myself with art. Every step I took, greeting patrons and critics, was heavy. It carried the weight of years of being dismissed. My simple black artist's gown contrasted sharply with his judgment. I felt the sting of his disapproval. It was a quiet poison meant to make me smaller. It whispered that my achievements were mere hobbies. Yet, beneath the surface was steady strength. I was no longer the girl he ignored at family dinners. I was an artist. I had made choices in silence. I carried the full responsibility of my career in my hands. The soft murmur of conversation swelled. The air grew still. The museum director was about to speak. Guests shifted, sensing the tension between the artist and her family. My father's smirk deepened. He was confirming to himself that I would never belong in his world. What he didn't know was that the room was about to transform. The definition of respect was about to be rewritten. The words that would undo his certainty were imminent. A few hours before the opening, I sat in the small office. I stared at the invitation card. The title was The Unspoken Form. It felt heavier than any sculpture I had molded. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. His words were sharp and cold. Don't let this little show go to your head. I hope you've lined up a few networking contacts for your brother. He made no effort to hide his disdain. To him, my career was a temporary distraction. My art was a threat to his polished image. The words hit harder than I expected. For 20 years, I had carried his judgment. He called my residencies vacations. My grants were lucky breaks. My vision was stubbornness. Seeing that contempt on the day of my biggest achievement was a strike. He wanted to remind me I was still not enough. I tightened my jaw and forced myself to breathe. But I felt the familiar ache of being invisible to the man who should be proud. The office door creaked open. My brother Andrew walked in. He carried the easy confidence of the unquestioned golden child. He glanced at my sales figures tacked to a board. He let out a sharp, cutting laugh. "Seriously, Elle?" he said. He gestured at the board. "The prices are cute, but you make less than my Christmas bonus. Can you not just be serious for one day?" To him, my art was a frivolous joke. He did not see the years of grinding poverty it represented. He did not see the creative uncertainty. He only saw an opportunity to remind me of my place. I watched him smirk. I felt the old mix of anger and sadness rise. Andrew had never spent a single night in a drafty studio. He never worried about next month's rent, yet he spoke with arrogance. His corner office and inherited success made him feel more valuable. My parents, blinded by their pride, let that story define us. He leaned against the doorway. I remembered every holiday dinner. His stories of mergers drowned out my quiet triumphs. I remembered the lavish apartment they gifted him, the huge investments they made for him, while I was told to be grateful for scraps of attention. His laugh was a lifetime of dismissal, A lifetime of being told my choices were wrong. My sacrifices were less important. My victories were not victories at all. I wanted to shout the truth. The price tag was not the measure of my art's worth. It was the sum of battles fought, nights without sleep, moments where one decision meant success or failure, but shouting would change nothing. Andrew lived where approval came easily. I lived where I earned it inch by inch. His mockery was the latest reminder. My family had built a hierarchy where I was always second. As he left, still chuckling, I looked at the invitation. My father's text burned. Andrew's words echoed. But beneath the anger there was a new steadiness. They could laugh and dismiss me. But this art carried authority and power. In that gallery, they would finally see what I had become. The memory of that Thanksgiving dinner still weighs heavy. Robert, my father, claimed his usual place at the head of the table. He spoke as if the evening revolved around him. Martha, my mother, smoothed tension, pretending not to notice the imbalance. Andrew was the center of their glowing attention. Andrew leaned back and told his latest deal story. His voice was self-important. My parents hung on every word. They approved of his yacht club, his corporate future. They acted as if their world was the only one that mattered. I sat quietly, knowing the pattern. He spoke, they praised. I disappeared. When a lull finally came, I tried to enter. I mentioned my latest sculpture. A major West Coast museum had acquired it for its permanent collection. I spoke softly, knowing how it would land. My father glanced at me for half a second. He patted my arm. "Another little piece in storage, eh?" he said. "Maybe you can make one of those big metal things for Andrew's new lawn when this art phase ends." Then he turned back to Andrew, his voice booming with pride. My accomplishment dissolved. It was swallowed by the glow reserved for my brother. I was invisible once more, a shadow at my own family's table. That night, I sat in my small, cold studio. I stared at a half-finished clay bust. I replayed my father's dismissive phrase. I called my mother, hoping for comfort. Her voice was gentle, the same tension-smoothing voice. She said he was from another time. He didn't understand the creative world. He just wanted to see me stable. Stable. The word sank like a stone. It reduced years of commitment and sacrifice to a tameable phase. In that silence, the truth cut through me. My family would never see me. I would always be the daughter chasing something too strange, too uncomfortable for their world of quarterly reports. Their recognition was a door that would never open. I realized I would have to live without it. The pain would follow me until I built something stronger. The air in the foundry hummed. The electric roar of the furnace filled the space. Every man waited for my instruction. The metal, molten and shimmering, was ready for the pour. On the concrete floor, a complex sand mold lay open. It waited for the shape I had spent years perfecting. Time was slipping away. The metal cooled fast. The foreman's voice came through my headset. He was calm but strained. He requested a change that could save the mold or risk the piece. Every set of eyes turned to me. Hardened workers with decades of bronze casting waited. I felt the weight of every failure and every lesson. My pulse pounded, but my voice stayed steady. "Stick to the plan. Speed up the secondary vent. Let's pour." The reply was crisp. "Roger, boss." The word carried through the room. It was a seal of authority. It meant my judgment was trusted. Trusted with the material, with the process. The respect in that room was earned in silence. It was born of hard choices, not empty praise or family ties. In that world, I was not invisible. I was seen, and I was followed. I sat with my father's message still burning. Little show looped like a lifelong taunt. For years, I had fought on his terms, seeking approval, hoping he would see me. That hope was finally gone. It was replaced by sharp clarity. My exhibition would not be his stage for ridicule. It would be mine. I reviewed the final gallery layout. A sense of calm settled in. I would not wear lace or silk to appease anyone. I would stand next to the monumental pieces I had earned. I would let them speak louder than any words I could say. If my family only respected undeniable power, I would give them a display of it, one they could never forget. With methodical precision, I planned the final details. The museum staff would seat my champions, major collectors and critics, in the front. My closest artist friends and mentors were placed strategically. The most influential art historian, Dr. Anya Sharma, would introduce me. She would legitimize every choice I made. Piece by piece, I turned the ceremony into a lesson. They thought they were attending a pleasant art opening. They were about to witness a demonstration of critical and commercial gravity. The day my two worlds merged would happen on my terms. The gallery was filled with the curator's voice. Anticipation stretched the air thin. Then came the soft thud of a microphone being tapped. Silence. Dr. Anya Sharma stepped onto the podium. She was known for her sharp wit and insight. The guests shifted in their expensive seats. Their tailored suits looked out of place. They were framed against the raw, visceral power of the welded steel sculpture. Whispers rippled through the civilian guests. They felt like they stumbled into a serious academic ceremony. Dr. Sharma began to speak. Her voice was strong. We are here tonight to celebrate not just an exhibition, but a voice. A voice that has taken the unyielding materials of the earth and bent them to her will. She paused, gesturing to my massive steel piece. This is not a hobby. It is not a phase. It is the work of a master. Silence stretched through the gallery. Every eye turned to me. I saw my father lean toward Andrew. His smirk was curling into cruelty. He whispered loud enough for those nearby to hear. She looks ridiculous, standing there like a pretentious student. The words were small and cutting, meant to reduce me, but I kept walking. Steady, unshaken. I knew the moment he thought belonged to him was about to slip away. Dr. Sharma concluded, her final words slicing the polite buzz. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the artist herself, Eleanor Vance, whose work, I predict, will define the next decade of American sculpture. The words echoed with absolute authority. In the same breath, a thunderous wave of applause erupted. It was overwhelming. A single, powerful torrent of appreciation and respect. It rolled through the room like a storm. Hundreds of hands clapped. Critics, gallery owners, serious collectors. It was a crisp, undeniable acknowledgement of who I was. The civilians gasped. Their whispers silenced instantly. The most respected figures in the art world stood and applauded. Their shoulders were squared. Their eyes were fixed on me with a reverence my own family had never given. This was not polite clapping. It was recognition, earned and unshakable. I looked past the sea of appreciation to the front corner. My family sat frozen. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Her face was pale with shock. Andrew's jaw hung open. His arrogance was swallowed by confusion. But it was my father's expression that held me still. The smugness melted away. It was replaced first by disbelief, then anger, and finally a hollow fear. The truth settled in. This was not a costume. This was not a phase. The critical acclaim and world-class figures carried more weight than all his wealth. For the first time, my father saw me as I truly was. It stripped him bare. He sat pale and trembling. A man undone by the simple fact that his daughter commanded the respect of an entire world, a world he could never understand or control. The reception room glowed with soft light. It reflected off the complex surfaces of my work. Laughter and conversation flowed easily. Serious collectors, esteemed critics, and fellow artists surrounded me. They spoke of process, vision, and mastery of the medium. For the first time in years, I felt completely seen. Every handshake and word of respect affirmed my world, a world I built through commitment and hard work. Across the room, my family huddled. Their expensive suits and polished smiles looked hollow. They were under the weight of the genuine enthusiasm that filled the space. No one approached them, not out of cruelty, but because they simply didn't belong. They were ghosts in a place alive with honor and camaraderie. I saw Andrew staring at the floor. His spark of superiority was gone. My mother stood stiff, clutching her glass, searching for words. My father, once so loud and certain, looked small, diminished by a truth he couldn't bend to his will. They had no audience here, no control, no authority. As the evening carried on, they slipped quietly out a side door. No goodbyes, no congratulations, just silence as they faded away. I did not follow. I did not ache for them to stay. Their absence did not leave a void. It was a quiet confirmation. Blood may bind, but respect is what endures. Years later, I stood in my studio. I overlooked the city skyline. The urban expanse was a reminder of the path I had taken. My career had carried me further than I ever believed possible. With each sculpture, I earned not just commissions. I earned the quiet respect of those who understood artistic responsibility. At home, life was steady with Ethan, my husband. He is an architect. He appreciated my perspective. He never needed me to explain my passion. We did not measure love with empty praise. We did not rely on conditional approval. Our foundation was mutual understanding. It was forged in the same fires of creation. When I thought about family, I no longer thought of blood ties. I no longer thought of the hollow expectations that once defined me. My true family was the circle of people who stood with me. They stood with me because they chose to, not because they had to. My studio assistants, my gallerist, my husband, my loyal collectors. It was a family built on respect, trust, and enduring love. Legacy is not what someone hands down to you. It is what you fight for, what you sacrifice for, what you earn when others stand and recognize your worth. I learned that family is defined by the people who choose to respect and walk beside you.